I just saw a video that jumped up on my For You page, and it was a certain conscious spokesperson who was saying that the reason why the Bible tells men and women not to have intercourse outside of marriage is because they'll know what their preferences are. And then when they meet a really good person, that person might not meet their preferences because they've had these different options. And I found this video quite interesting because it's, to me, was not a selling point to tell someone ignorance is bliss and ignorance lets you be satisfied with whatever you get. Isn't a selling point. You know, I remember I read, and I watched a documentary about it, but I read a book called I think it was The Lost Boys of Sudan, or it might have had another title, but it was about the Lost Boys of Sudan. And that was a group of children who were fleeing violence in their villages, and their parents had been unalived, and their relatives, all of the adults basically, had been unalived, and they were trekking across to get to these refugee camps basically. And then these American humanitarian groups came in and brought them to America because, again, they had lost everything. They didn't have any relatives. They wanted to be able to get these teenagers into high school, into college. And when they brought them from the refugee camps, they had to teach them everything, what a light switch was, you know, what air conditioning was, what a vacuum cleaner was. And the first time they went into a grocery store and they went to the bread aisle, they couldn't believe that the entire side of one aisle was different types of bread, and then different types of soap, and then different types of everything. They could only recognize, I think one of the boys said the only thing that he recognized in the grocery store was mangoes and rice and nothing else. I think oatmeal was the other thing. So everything was a new adventure to them, every single thing that we take for granted. And I bring that up because there are some conservative people who believe ignorance is bliss. They believe that you don't need to have access to books, the internet, the ability to vote, the ability to, you know, watch different types of TV programs or movies. They want everyone to live without access to information unless that information has been approved by them and they think that it's appropriate. And that's the opposite of what a free society is supposed to be. You know, the number one right on the Bill of Rights is freedom of speech. I mean, it's not completely unhindered freedom of speech, but it is freedom of speech. And the fact that this is so controversial in this age where people are trying to silence comedians and trying to stop films or art from being made, trying to ban and burn books at an unprecedented rate is crazy. And it's all about this idea that I know what's good for you and that my belief system is what's good for you. And you don't need to have too many choices, because if you have too many choices, you might decide that you don't want the choice we're offering you. If you have too many choices, you might decide that you want to opt out of marriage, or opt out of child rearing, or opt out of going into this profession that we think we need more people in. And you want to be an entrepreneur, or you want to be an artist, or you want to be a vagabond, or you want to be whatever it is. But the thing is, it is our lives. It's not their lives. It's not, they have their own life. We have our own life. So this ownership, this feeling of entitlement to take away other people's options, to take away other people's choices, it's so mind-boggling to me. Like, who made you judge and jury on what people should be able to read or think or say or do or have access to? And people will make the craziest statements, on these podcasts. I mean, they'll say things like, if you're not going to stay married for life, then you shouldn't have access to marriage. Well, we have no fault divorce. I know you're trying to take it away, but we do have it right now. And it's not your choice. You have the right to let your vows mean what they mean to you, and other people have the right to let their vows mean what they mean to them. That's being an adult and making an adult choice. And it's just so mind-boggling that people want to define who should have access to relationships, who should have access to marriage, who should have access to books and what kind of books, who should have access to movies and what kind of movies, what kind of art, what kind of music. It is just so mind-boggling. And the thing is, it's getting worse. Every now and then I'll run across something from the 50s or the 40s or the 30s or the 20s. And it's a little more risque than some of the things that we have on the radio now. The lyrics are a little more out there, and I'm not saying that particular song was mainstream, but it existed. And there's always been an underground. There's always been the speakeasies when there was prohibition. There's always been this undercurrent. But the thing is, the undercurrent seems to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger because more and more and more things are tending to get censored. And even this medium that we're using right now of social media has been under fire for